Kirk of Math. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to 8.2. In this lesson, we are going to go ahead and learn how to turn fractions into decimals and percents that are not already out of 100. So that's kind of the difference here, is we've already learned about fractions, decimals, and percents when the denominator of that fraction is 100, but sometimes that's not always the case. So we are going to convert decimals, fractions, decimals, and percents, and we're going to learn about how to do that in many ways. We're going to use equivalent ratios or proportions. We're going to use bar models, and we're going to use multiplication and division. All right, first thing we're going to do is we're going to say that we're going to convert fractions to percents. So that's the first thing, is what if I have a fraction that is not out of 100 already? That's very common. Most things in the world are not out of 100. So you might have a fraction like 1/2, or a fraction like 3/4, or a fraction like 7/9. And if I need to figure out what percent that is, I'm going to have to do something different in order to convert that. All right, so a fraction can be written as a percent when the denominator is 100. That is the key thing. If the denominator is a friendly number, you can scale that number, that fraction, up or down, or use a proportion. Now, if you remember correctly, a proportion is the same thing as finding equivalent ratios. Remember, we learned it as the bar equals bar method. Okay, so you can see in the examples here that we have 2/5 and we need to turn them into a percent. So that means that we're going to have to turn them into a ratio with a denominator of 100. So I can scale it to 100 by asking myself, what am I going to multiply 5 by to make 100, which in this case is 20. And then I'm going to do that the same on the top. Okay, I can also do it in this format as well, like we used to do in our module 6 and 7 stuff. So we're going to practice. We're going to convert each fraction to a percent by making each denominator 100. So this is one method to convert fractions to percents. We are going to learn a couple different methods today. So I am going to go ahead and set up my proportion. 6/20 equals what over 100? And then I'm going to scale it up or down by multiplying by a number that will turn 20 into 100. 20 times 5 is 100. So 6 times 5, is going to be my answer on top. 6 times 5 is 30. So therefore, this is 30%. Okay, let's do it again. 10 over 100. 7/10 equals what over 100? Well, 10 times 10 is 100. So I'm going to do 7 times 10 and get 70, which means that is 70%. And then the last one, 50 equals what over 100? 50 times 2 is 100. So 60 times 2 makes 120. So that is going to be 120%. Okay. Method 2. Okay, so right now we'll make a little list. Method 1 is proportions. Okay, method 2 is going to be using a tape diagram and a number line, which is basically another type of tape diagram. You should remember tape diagrams from, if I can spell tape diagrams. You should remember tape diagrams from module 6 and 7. I will remind you here how we use them. Okay. So the reason that we have a second method is because not all fractions can be easily multiplied by a whole number to make 100. For example, 1/3. If I have the fraction 1/3, I cannot multiply 3 by any number, whole number, to get 100. So this is a different way that I can find the answer. So to work a tape diagram, we're going to divide the tape diagram or the number line into the same number of sections as the denominator. So if I was using 1/3 up here, I would be dividing my tape diagram into 3 equal sections. Then I'm going to shade the number of parts indicated by the numerator, and then estimate the value. So let's do an example. What is 1/8 is equal to what percent? So here I have a tape diagram. This one's the tape diagram. This is representing 0 and 0%. And then down here I have the number line. We're basically going to do the same thing for both. I'm going to divide both of these into 8 equal parts. So because my number line already has some dashes, let's see what they're divided into. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Awesome. We have 8 equal parts. Okay, let's get rid of those hops so that we're not confused. So that's what I'm going to do to my tape diagram above. I'm just going to match underneath. Okay. Another way to divide something into 8 equal parts is to divide it in half, and then divide those halves in half, and then divide those halves in half. Now I have 8 pieces. And now I have to figure out what these numbers represent. So half of 8 is 4, half of 4 is 2, and half of 2 is 1. So each of these is going to be just one value. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8. I'm going to do the same thing on my number line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8. That was our first step. Divide the tape diagram or number line into the same number of sections as the denominator. I am now going to shade the same number of parts as my numerator, which in this case is 1. So I'm going to shade just one part of my tape diagram and my number line. What I now have to do is also divide that 100% into those 8 equal parts. So we know that half of 100 is 50%. Half of 50% is 25%. And so half of that, we're going to estimate to be whatever half of 25 would be. So if I do a little quick long division, that brings down, I know that it's going to be 4 times not 2, or not 4, it's going to be 2. There we go. 4 times 2 is 4. Okay, and I'm going to get about 12.5%. Well, not about 12.5%, but I'm going to get exactly 12.5%. That means that every section on my tape diagram or my number line is equal to 12.5. So that means that 1/8 is 12.5%. Okay. Let's practice this again. We're going to do one at a time. So we're going to create a tape diagram or number line for each one. So we have 1/3 is equal to what percent? So I'm going to divide this into 3 equal parts to the best of my abilities. Okay. This is 0, 1, 2, and 3. That's my total. I am now going to shade just one piece. And I need to figure out and estimate what is 100% divided into 3 pieces. So we're going to do 100 divided by 3. Okay, that's going to go in 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. Oh, that's going to go in 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. And here you could probably see that we're going to start getting a repeating decimal, because it's just going to keep turning out to be 1, and then I'm going to bring down another 0. So this is a repeating number. So if I estimate and round, it's about 33% or 33.3%. And that is going to be my answer. Let's do just 33%. Let's take off the decimal there. Now we're going to do the same thing, but with the number, or with 3/8. So I'm going to divide my 100%. We're going to say this is 8. We're going to divide it into 8 equal pieces. 4, 8. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So what I'm going to do now is shade in just 3 of those pieces. And now I have to estimate. So based on our previous division, we know that 1/8 is 12.5. And I now have 3 of those. So I can either do 12.5 times 3, or I can just add 12.5 3 times to get my answer. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and multiply because I think that's a little bit faster. 7, 3. So this is going to be about 37.5%. 3/8 is 37.5%. Right, we are now on to our third method to turn fractions into into percents. In order to do that, we're actually going to convert our fractions to a decimal, and then we all know how to turn a decimal into a percent from our last video, so that would be really easy. Now, this is the traditional way that your parents probably know. This is the traditional way that a lot of people were taught. So I do think that sometimes this is really easy, especially if that denominator does not go evenly into 100. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take our fraction. A fraction can be converted to a decimal by dividing the numerator by the denominator. So I'm going to go ahead and divide with long division 3 by 4. Now, yes, I'm going to need to do long division, and I need a decimal answer, so I'm going to need to add that decimal point. Go away. All right. Oh, so sorry. This thing keeps popping up. I'm going to divide 4 into 3. That goes in 0 times. 4 then goes into 30. Let's see, 7 times. 4 times 7 is 28. That's a 2. I'm going to add a 0 and bring it down. 4 goes into 25 times, and in the end, I'm going to get 0.75, which I can then turn into a percent, which would be 75%. So pause for a moment and practice that with these 3. If you want to keep watching so you can see examples, you can. But I'm just going to do long division on all of these to turn the fraction into a decimal, and then I can turn that decimal into a percent. All right, so here we went ahead and divided 7 by 8, okay? And we ended up getting 0.875. That would be turned into 87.5%, because as you remember from our last video, we're going to just move our decimal 2 places to the right to turn it into a percentage, because we're timesing by 100. Over here, I divided 1 by 25. I had to add an extra 0 because 25 did not go into 10, but it does go into 104 times. So I was left with 0.04 or 4 hundredths, which is the same as 4%. And then in the end, I had a mixed number here. I had to turn that improper. And then I went ahead and did 9 divided by 5 to get 1.8. That makes sense because we already had a whole number in our fraction, so we know we should have a whole number in our decimal. 1.8 as a percent would be 180%. So that is the dividing method. Now we're reviewing the converting decimals to percents part. We already did that. We've talked about it, but we're going to do it again just to practice. So as a reminder, to convert decimals to percents, we're going to multiply by 100 or move our decimal places 2 places to the right. Don't forget this information in your notes. Multiplying goes to the right and dividing goes to the left. We're going to read these 2 word problems, divide them using long division, and then turn that decimal into a percent. I'm going to pause and do them and show you the answers because my video is running out of time. So in number 9, we divided 4 by 5 to get the decimal of 4/5, which is 0.8, and then we times that by 100, move the decimal 2 places to the right to get 80%. On number 10, it doesn't want a percentage. It wants you to take 1.15 and turn it into a